Hi everybody, Robert Dyer, and welcome to the Robert Dyer After Christmas Countdown. Something different today on the countdown. After all, Christmas is celebrating the birth of Christ, and I have here a book from my childhood that I found. It's called Saint of the Day, Volume 1. And it's of interest, I think, whether you're religious or simply from a historical perspective, because all of these saints are historical figures, and often their lives cross over into history, political history, as much as religious history. I believe I got this book at the Franciscan Monastery here in Washington, D.C. I urge you to visit there at some point. It's a very impressive place, and especially to go into the catacombs underneath the building. The catacombs is something that I was very fascinated by when I was a kid, a recreation of real catacombs. Some of the things that I like about Catholicism, aside from the obvious that it's the church directly descended from Christ and his apostles. You have St. Peter, who was the OG of popes, but also it's, to me, is very much a living church, because you have so many days around the calendar. You're either celebrating something, you're getting ready to celebrate something, and I thought it was especially reflective of how in the early times of the church people thought Christ was coming back very soon. They had no idea how long it was going to be. And so this idea of not just going once a week to a service, but celebrating things throughout the week, or sacrificing or participating in activities, you're always very much then focused on your faith as opposed to just once a week. And saint days on the calendar are quite numerous, and this book was published by the St. Anthony Messenger Press in one of my favorite cities, Cincinnati, in the great state of Ohio. And it has some illustration. You see this one in this orange on the cover here, but they look sort of like woodcut ink illustrations or something. And if you want to know just how old the book is, the price up here says $1.95, so you never get that price today for this. So we're kind of in between the days here. It jumps from January 2nd being the first one to January 4th. But for January 2nd you have Basil the Great, 329 to 379. They don't give you much context here, but this is right after it was in 313 that the Emperor Constantine ended the persecution of Christians in the Roman Empire. So this is only about 20 years after that or so. It says Basil was on his way to becoming a famous teacher when he decided to begin a religious life of gospel poverty. After studying various modes of religious life, he founded what was probably the first monastery in Asia Minor. He is to monks of the East what Saint Benedict is to the West, and his principles influence Eastern monasticism today. He was ordained priest, assisted the Archbishop of Caesarea, now southeastern Turkey, and ultimately became Archbishop himself. One of the most damaging heresies in the history of the Church, Arianism, which denied the divinity of Christ, was at its height. This is actually the idea that Christ was a literally the Son of God, and not as in the Catholic Church where all three of the Trinity are considered to be equal. The mystery you're not supposed to understand. And it says the Emperor Valens persecuted the Orthodox and put great pressure on Basil to remain silent and admit the heretics to communion. Now also they don't mention here that Valens himself is an Arian, so it's pretty important to know that. Basil remained firm and Valens backed down, but trouble remained. When the great Athanasius died, the mantle of defender of the faith against Arianism fell upon Basil. He strove mightily to unite and rally his fellow Catholics who were crushed by tyranny and torn by internal dissension. He was misunderstood, misrepresented, accused of heresy and ambition. It says he was tireless in pastoral care. He preached twice a day to huge crowds, built a hospital that was called a wonder of the world, and fought the white slave market. White slave market, who knew? Basil was best known as an orator. His writings, though not recognized greatly in his lifetime, rightly place him among the great teachers of the Church. 72 years after his death, the Council of Chalcedon described him as the great Basil, minister of grace who has expounded the truth to the whole earth. And then you have a little comment by the authors to think about, and then they give you a quote from each saint themselves. And here, January 4th, St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. This is a very prominent saint in this area because here in the state of Maryland, Emmitsburg is where her shrine is, and where you can see the various buildings that she was responsible for building there. The first saint who was born in America, so very important from that standpoint as well. They also have a very good gift shop, and there is I have many memories from going to the Pizza Hut there in downtown Emmitsburg, one of those classic full-size Pizza Huts. But in any case, certainly an interesting book, a book I have fond memories of reading and where I got it, and something perhaps in line with what we are celebrating here, the season of Christmas that goes through January 6th. So I hope you like this video, share it with your friends, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time, tomorrow, on this After Christmas Countdown. Bye everybody.